As every kid knows, Halloween is both spooky and sweet. It's spooky because there are witches and wizards about, and it's sweet because children go in search of treats. This story is about a little girl who is a witch, and it's fair to say that it's more sweet than spooky. Her name is Ava, and her schoolmates think she is rather odd, and don't really believe that she can do magic. She's afraid of Halloween, because she thinks they will tease her more than usual. But in fact, she has quite a few useful tricks and treats up her sleeve. Once upon a time, there was a girl called Ava. Ava was 7, and she lived in a nice house with her mum and a dog called Charlie. And it was all quite normal, really, except for one thing. They were witches. Well, except for Charlie, who was a D-witch, which is a dog who casts spells. Anyway, being a witch wasn't so bad. Mum would just twitch her nose and all the cleaning would get done. Dad would wave his stick and the lawn would cut itself. Charlie would click his paws and a few dog treats would tumble out of the sky. They'd even taught Ava some magic. She knew how to make her homework do itself, and her room got tidied just by twitching her ear. But there was just one thing Ava really didn't like: Halloween. Once a year, when the leaves were falling off the trees and the nights were getting longer, all the children in her school and along her street would get terribly excited about Halloween. They made costumes of horrible-looking witches with long, pointy noses and spots and nasty black hats and broomsticks. And Ava said in school, "Witches aren't like that, really. My mum looks quite nice." And all the other girls fell about laughing. "Ava thinks she's a witch," they laughed. "She's ugly and horrible, just like a witch." And when Ava went home that day, she was really upset. She cried and cried and cried, and when her mum asked her what the matter was, she said, "Everyone hates witches, and they especially hate them at Halloween." And her mum tried to explain that although some people didn't like witches, it was also quite useful sometimes, like when the washing up got done all by itself. "I don't ever want to have anything to do with witchcraft again," said Ava angrily. But on Halloween night, all the girls from her school were organizing a trick-or-treat tour of the street, and Ava didn't want to go, because she'd decided she didn't want to have anything to do with witchcraft. Never, never, never. But her mum said she had to, because a witch can hardly stay in on Halloween, and she whispered something in Ava's ear. Do you know what it was? Well, I'll tell you in a minute. Anyway, Ava went to join the other girls, and some of them started laughing at her. "Ava doesn't have to dress up because she's already a witch," they laughed. And Ava felt cross and embarrassed, but she decided to say nothing. At the first house, they got a load of sherbet lemons. At the second, a jumbo pack of sweeties. At the third, loads and loads of crisps. And at the fourth, a giant packet of chocolate biscuits. But at the fifth house, there lived a man called Mr. Cooper, and Mr. Cooper didn't like children. He certainly didn't see why he should give them any treats. "Buzz off, you stupid kids," he said when they knocked on the door. "Trick or treat, trick or treat," cried the girls. "Yes, well, I think I'll take the trick, if it's all the same to you," said Mr. Cooper, and a horrible smile creased up his face. "Because you're just a bunch of stupid little girls and you don't scare me." "But one of us is a real witch," said Mia, the biggest of the girls. Yes, yes, Ava's a real witch, they all cried. But Mr. Cooper just laughed and laughed. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard, he said. Go on, Ava, said Mia. Let's see if you really are a witch. And so Ava stepped forwards. You don't look scary to me, said Mr. Cooper. You're just a stupid little girl. But Ava remembered what her mum had whispered in her ear. Do you know what it was? A special spell. So right then, Ava recited the magic words, and she wriggled her ear, and all the girls gasped in amazement, because suddenly Mr. Cooper wasn't Mr. Cooper anymore. He was a little brown, fluffy hamster, inside a cage, running around and around on a wheel. All the girls laughed and laughed. Ava leaned into the cage. Is it fun being a hamster? The little creature squeaked and shook its head, and Ava spun the wheel so that he had to run faster and faster. And then she recited the magic words, and Mr. Cooper was turned back into a man again. I'll get you some treats, girls, he said very quickly and nervously. And he came back with tons of chocolate bars, fizzy drinks, biscuits, and even a new Barbie DVD for each girl. Please come back next year, girls, he said. I'll have even better stuff for you. And he went back inside, looking very nervous. And as they went down the rest of the street, everyone had heard that there was a real witch-out trick and treating tonight. So they all gave the girls even more sweets and biscuits than usual, and even some toys. And Ava was the most popular girl in her class. You know, maybe it's not so bad being a witch after all, she said when she got home. And I think I'm going to enjoy Halloween from now on. Ava returns in a new tale in which she gets into trouble, big trouble, at school. Ava has twice as much schoolwork to do as all the other kids. She has to learn loads and loads of magic spells, as well as her written spelling, arithmetic, geography, French, and history. She finds that it's ever so tempting just to use a little bit of magic in her ordinary school exams. And that's when her trouble begins. It was summer. The school year had almost come to an end, and everyone was looking forward to the long holidays. In fact, everyone would have been really, really happy, except for one thing. Before the holidays, they had to do exams. And nobody likes to do exams, unless they are the swattiest of swats. And Ava didn't think that exams were at all nice. No matter how good you are at magic, you still have to remember things for yourself. And Ava had twice as much to learn as all the other children. She had to do the witch exams as well as the ordinary school exams. She did the witch exams in the evenings, and her mum gave her 4.5 stars for her work. But then she had to get ready for the tests at her school. Mum, it's not fair, she complained. I have to learn so many magic spells, and I have to learn all the school lessons too. Well, just think yourself lucky, said Mum. Other children have to tidy their rooms, but you can just say a magic spell and it's done just like that. So Ava sat in her room and tried to read her school books. But to tell you the truth, she also looked out of the window and made up fairy tales about herself. Only in the stories, she wasn't a witch. She was a beautiful princess who could also do magic tricks. When exam week came, the first test was spelling. If it had been magic spelling, Ava would have been all right. But in this test, the teacher read out words like accommodation and Mississippi and other words that are tricky to spell. Ava was really cross. She thought the teacher had chosen the most difficult words just to be mean. That wasn't fair. So, she tried a little magic. She couldn't say a spell out loud because everyone would hear, so she just thought the words in her head really hard. And wow, it worked. Her pen wrote the correct spellings all by itself. Next, they had to do math problems. Ava could do the first few because they were easy peasy. But then there was a mean question about a monkey and some bananas. So, she thought up another magic spell, and again her pen wrote down the right answer. In history, she had to remember all the names of the gods of ancient Egypt, and in geography, she had to remember the capital cities of Europe. And in French, she had to remember some really, really tricky words like le singe est sur la branche, which means the monkey is on the branch. In fact, all the exams had mean questions in them. And in every case, a little magic spell came in handy. In fact, the magic worked so well for Ava that she thought to herself, why should I bother learning all these stupid things? I can just say a magic spell and my pen will write the answer. The week after that, the teacher finished marking all the papers. She told the class that they had all done very well, especially Ava, who had scored top marks in every exam. She hadn't got a single answer wrong. "Wow, Ava," said Charlotte. "You're a genius." The teacher said, "Congratulations, Ava. You certainly did very well. Maybe too well. I think that you and I should go and have a little talk with Mrs. William," and Ava felt just a bit worried, because Mrs. William is the headmistress. And when you go to have a little talk with Mrs. William, that usually means that you are in trouble, big trouble. Head teacher at lunchtime, the teacher took Ava to see Mrs. William. She explained that Ava had got top marks in all her exams and hadn't got a single question wrong. "You are a very naughty girl," said Mrs. William. And Ava started to cry, and to cry, and to cry, and the teacher dried her tears with a handkerchief. "There," she said. Eventually, Ava stopped crying. "Do you know why you are a naughty girl?" asked Mrs. William. Ava said, "You're just cross with me because I'm a witch and I know how to do magic." "That's really mean of you because I can't help being a witch. I was born that way." "Now you are talking nonsense," said Mrs. William. "There are no such things as witches or magic. You are in trouble because you cheated in the exams." "I did not," said Ava. "Just tell us how you did it, and we will let you off, this time," said the teacher. Ava knew that she was in big trouble. She just wanted to run out of the study and all the way back home to her mum. But she couldn't do that, so she thought she had better own up. "Well, I did do a few magic spells," she said. "Just little ones." But they didn't believe her. "Oh dear, what are we going to do with this problem child?" said the teacher. "Ava," said Mrs. William, "you are in big, big trouble. You have till the end of term to tell us how you cheated in the exams. If you don't tell the truth by then, you won't be coming back to school next term. We don't have girls who make up stories about witches and magic in this school. Goodness gracious, you'll be frightening all the other children with these silly stories." And Ava was very sad about that, because she was telling the truth about being a witch, and it wasn't fair. It was the last week of term, and before the holidays, the school always had a special treat. This term, Ava's class went on a trip to the safari park. It was a big park full of wild animals from places like Africa. There were giraffes and elephants, and long-legged deer called gazelles. Ava's class were all safe inside the bus, and they looked out of the window at all the animals. It was ever so cool. Everyone was really excited and happy, except for Ava. She was sad because she was still in big trouble. The best animals were the chimpanzees. They climbed all over the bus. The driver got really cross when they stole his windscreen wipers. Everyone else thought that was ever so funny. And the lions were good too, even if they were a bit scary. They had lunch in a restaurant on top of a tall rock. The rock was on a big island surrounded by water, and in the water there were crocodiles. And the crocodiles were really scary, even more scary than the lions. There was a boy in Ava's class called Clive. Clive was always doing silly things, but the teachers didn't seem to mind. Clever never got into trouble, however silly he was. But then, he didn't know how to do magic, so that was probably why he always got away with things. In the restaurant, Clive did something very silly indeed. He asked to go to the loo, and on the way back, he went through a door that said, "Staff only." And from there he went down a corridor and found a special room. It was the room which they used to feed the crocodiles. It had a window, and the keepers threw meat out of it, down into the river, and somebody had left the window open. Clive climbed up to look through the window. Then he saw that if you climbed out of the window, you could get onto the rocks. He thought it would be really cool to walk around the rocks and look in at the other children eating their lunch. They would get a really big surprise to see him out there. So that's what he did. Only he slipped on a banana skin left by a monkey. Then he fell down the rocks and broke his ankle. Fortunately, one of the keepers saw him and sounded the alarm. Everyone in the restaurant rushed to the window to look out, and they saw Clive lying on a rock near the river. A crocodile was waddling slowly towards him. Its face had a sort of smile on it, and its tail was swishing. Everyone screamed, except for Ava and Wendy. Wendy knew that Ava was a witch, because once she had turned her into a toad for a short time. Ava, do something. You're the only one who can save poor Clive. Just say a magic spell. Quick. Mrs. William heard this, but she was too frightened to tell off either Wendy or Ava. After all, poor Clive was looking into the jaws of a crocodile. Ava thought really hard about what would be the best magic spell to do, and then she decided, I know. I will make Clive fly. Fortunately, she knew the spell to make somebody fly, off by heart. She had learned it when she was getting ready for her witch exams. Now she shouted it out at the top of her voice. I can't tell you what she said because it's a secret. But it worked well, because everyone saw Clive rise up in the air and gently fly back up to the restaurant. Even the crocodile was impressed. Then Ava said another spell to make everyone forget what they had just seen, except for the crocodile and Mrs. William. After that, Ava wasn't in trouble anymore, because Mrs. William now knew that she was telling the truth when she said she was a witch. And Ava was glad that she had worked very hard that term to learn all her magic spells. and when she got home and told her family what had happened, her mum gave her another half-star for passing her witch exams. So now Ava is a 5-star witch.